There are so many people interpreting so many things so many different ways. You'll go out of your mind if you think it is your job to convince anyone of anything. You have only one thing to do, and that is to come into alignment with who you are. And when you do, your alignment will cause a connection with the energy that creates worlds and provide for you a path of unfoldment that cannot even be described in conversation. So, that's the basis of what we have to say to you. You are born as source energy, and you've come forth with the intention of joyful expanding. The expanding part is certain. The joyful part is optional. And that's really what we are talking about. That's why we call this Law of Attraction workshop series the art of allowing. That's your quest. Step 1 says, ask. Step 1 of the creative process, no matter what the subject of creation is. Step 1 says, ask. And the contrast insists on pulling that from you. You can't stop asking. You cannot stop the drawing of desire from you. The entire creation of all that we are insists on that. Step 2 is, when life causes you to ask, source energy becomes the vibrational equivalent of what you've asked for, and will hold it eternally until you ask for more, which it will then hold eternally, until you ask for more, which it will then hold eternally. Isn't that wonderful? Even if you are a one-celled organism in the ocean and you are asking, source answers your request. All species evolve in this way. Step 3 is the part that we're emphasizing here. Step 3 says, now that you have asked and now that source has answered, you must find a way to become a vibrational equivalent, a vibrational match to what you have asked for. So if you've asked for more money and you keep noticing that you don't have enough, you're not matching. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I really want more. I really want more, but I don't have enough, but I don't have enough. That guy's got enough. That guy's got enough. That guy's got enough. Not fair, not fair, not fair, not fair, not fair, not fair, not fair. Probably deals drugs, probably deals drugs. In other words, you can't beat the drum of justification and be a vibrational match to what you're asking for. The art of allowing says, I will find a way of becoming a match to who I really am. And the thing that we want you to understand is, when you are a match to who you really are, you feel really, really good. So it's so much easier for you to discover who life has caused you to become by feeling your way into alignment than by thinking your way into alignment. And do you know what feeling your way into alignment would provide for you? It would cause you to be a vibrational match to every single nuance of every single thing that you would ever ask for. You would come into the completion of that which you've asked for so far. And then you'll ask for more and come into alignment and ask for more and come into alignment and ask for more and come into alignment and ask for more and come into alignment. And do you know what the joy of life is? Coming into alignment, coming into alignment, coming into alignment, coming into alignment. That's the exhilaration. That's the being on the surfboard. That's the yodeling down the canyon. That's the feeling of passion that you keep reaching for. The feeling of passion comes to you when you are in movement toward that which you have become. And you all keep thinking, oh, I thought it was the getting there. We say, it can't be the getting there because you never get there. You never get to the end of the ride. You never get there. You say, oh, well, someday I'll croak. Yeah, that's just the beginning. When you croak, that's when you really let in all that you've been asking for. That's when you really decide to come forth and have more experience, to ask for more, you see. You are an eternal being seeking eternal expansion. Expansion is for sure. Eternal is for sure. Joyful is your choice. So, we're eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you.
So I brought my notebook because I have a number of questions, some of which are mine and some of which are friends. So I'm looking for some clarity. I've heard you talk about frivolous, non-physical beings with respect to the Ouija board and playing that game. And
Every thought that you've ever thought still exists. Every thought still exists. So let's talk about this. And we haven't said this before in this way either, so this is worth making a note of. So here you are, you're having experiences and you're thinking thoughts. You know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So think about what we've been saying. Oh, this is very good. You're really going to like this. So you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And you now know where you know what you do want thoughts go, don't you? You know what you do want thoughts go into this vibrational escrow. It becomes the future experience. It becomes the beingness of the source energy. Where do you think that I know where I don't want thoughts go? They don't go into the vibrational escrow. They're not eternally held, but they are part of the consciousness of the physical beingness that surrounds you. And every thought that has ever been thought still exists. And law of attraction is going to cause a coalescing of those thoughts. And so when we talk about the non-physical energy that you have access to, as Esther receives Abraham, she can feel by the swelling of love within her that she's receiving something that's coming from over there. But when you're playing with a Ouija board, you could tap into some of that if that is your vibrational place and intention. In other words, because you can read a book means you could read a book like this, which in our opinion would be of value to you to read it since we wrote it. But since you can read this language, you could pick up books that are not necessarily to your advantage. And just because you can read it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing for you to read. Well, people who can tap into vibration and read it, just because you can read vibration doesn't mean that some of the vibration that you tap into is necessarily good for you. But the difference between picking up a book and reading it is that you could pick up any book and read it. Somebody could hand you a book, but if you feel an aversion to it, that means that book and you are not on the same vibrational wavelength. So sometimes people can get into such a chronic pattern of feeling despair that then they become a vibrational match to thought forms. They're non-physical in the sense that they haven't materialized yet, but they are still a real and viable experience. And that's why the experiences that are scary to people, that's why they think that there are paranormal experiences that are evil in nature. Nothing can assert itself into your experience. Every bit of it, you must be a vibrational match to it in order to experience it. But you could be a vibrational match to unwanted things, and that's all that is.
I want to interrupt you just to get something on here. You said earlier how Esther had tremendous fear of the Seth books.
She was afraid of the supernatural. She was afraid of the Ouija board. She was afraid of the devil.
Okay, and then you're saying, so trust our feelings. And so had we trusted that feeling, her feelings instead of mine, we wouldn't have had all this experience, or would we?
When we talk about, it's a really important clarification.
That's the only reason I interrupted.
Well, when we talk about...
Actually, I wanted to talk.
When we talk about trusting your feelings, that statement must only come after your understanding that there is source energy and that good feels good. In other words, if you feel fear as you sit on a park bench because you fear that there's a monster in the bushes, whether there's a monster in the bushes or not, we think it's good to get away from the bench, because your belief that there's a monster in the bushes and you're sitting on the bench holds you in a vibrational place where you're allowing into your experience less than the goodness that you want.
So we could say that in the fact that I didn't push the books on her and didn't take them in the bedroom as she requested, and I just continued to enjoy them. And the only thing I presented to her were some points that I thought were valid.
It turns out that there was
improving life. Then her fear went away, but it was fear of something that didn't necessarily be afraid of, but she was afraid of. So
there was nothing in those books that was not a vibrational match. Nothing in those books, as Esther received them from you, would have made her feel fear. Her fear was about what she'd been told about things like that. So now let's talk about this. So the thought that gave her fear was that there are bad things lurking that have the power to assert themselves into her experience.
Like The Exorcist or something, a movie it was.
So that as that fear was within her, as she felt that fear, what that fear is telling her, a feeling that she can trust, is that that thought is not in alignment with her greater knowing. That fear doesn't mean that those things are valid. It means that that thought is not a vibrational match to the well-being that she seeks. And that's why your clarification is important, because when we say trust your feelings, we mean once you understand what your guidance system is. This is the thing that is so interesting to us about this movement relative to law of attraction. People like the idea that their thoughts create, and they like the idea of being able to think thoughts deliberately and attract to them. But when you leave out the two vibrational aspects that are playing off one another, when you leave out the part of it that you are source energy and that law of attraction is responding to this ever expanding part of you, then you leave out the guidance system. And when you leave out the guidance system, then you don't know where you're at within any thought or any creation. You can't tell where you are. There's no way to know if you're moving toward or away from something that you want or who you are.
Thank you.
So we'll clarify that more carefully. When we say trust your feelings, we mean once you've come into awareness that you are more than you know in this physical body, and once you are consciously aware that that non-physical part of you is the expanded version of that which you are, and once you've tasted through meditation or appreciation the sweetness of that alignment, and you use that as your standard, you use that as your placeholder, you use that as your indicator of what you are reaching for, then everything else will fall into alignment for you. So much so that when someone says to you, you are a good person, and you hear it, you will feel the resonance of it because your source agrees. But when someone says you are inappropriate, you have touched someone in a way that is offensive, and you feel that gut-wrenching discord within you because they are activating within you, or doing their best to, a feeling of unworthiness that the source within you does not feel. When you feel that, it lets you know that this thought is discordant to who you are. And the reason that we so want to talk about the thought is because everything is about the thought. There is nothing that you live or don't live. There's nothing that comes to you or that you hold away from you. There's nothing that you experience that is outside the thoughts you think. The thoughts you think equal the vibration you offer that law of attraction responds to, that brings all of the reality to you that you live. Everything that comes is about the thoughts you think. So when you get it, that the larger part of you lives and loves, and you are living and not loving, and you feel the discord of that, then you know what to do. Find a way of loving. Well, there are a lot of ways of loving. You can not look at this thing that you're having a hard time loving. That helps. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. That helped a lot. There it is again. If you turn your cheek enough, you'll deactivate what you don't want because you've activated something else. And then that stops coming. Anything that's showing up is coming in response to something that's active within you. So now, as you understand that your guidance is showing you, there are two active parts of you. The source, love, God, active part of you, and the human, physical, now what I'm focused upon, part of me.